Germanicus stood at the bow of the ship, watching the coastline of Lesbos fade into the distance as they made their way eastward. The sea was calm, but his thoughts were not. This assignment was unlike any he had faced before. No longer was he merely a general marching alongside his legions on the Rhine. Here, in the east, the stakes were different. They were political, fragile, and perilous. Parthia's king Artabanus loomed large in Germanicus's mind. The king's ambitions threatened to engulf Armenia and drag Rome into a protracted war with the Parthian Empire. Artabanus wanted King Vonones removed from the Armenian throne, seeing him as a threat and a rival. Having once ruled Parthia, Vonones' continued reign in Armenia was a reminder of Artabanus's contested path to maintaining his hold on Parthia. As long as Vonones sat on Armenia's throne, Artabanus would seek to reclaim the region, which would ignite a conflict Rome could not afford, a great war, one that Germanicus was tasked with preventing. But diplomacy with Parthia was no simple matter. The solution, as Tiberius saw it, was to remove Vonones and replace him with Artaxius, a pro-Roman member of the Arsacid family who posed no direct threat to Artabanus's rule of Parthia. Convincing Artabanus to accept Tiberius's terms, however, would require a set of skills that reached far beyond the clarity of battlefields and legionary loyalty. Implementing Tiberius's plan required diplomacy, subtlety, and an understanding of Eastern politics. Nor would Vonones yield the throne easily. Backed by Syria's new governor, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, the king of Armenia had little reason to surrender. The Calpurnius Pisos were among the few remaining noble families from the old republic to survive the civil wars. Their lineage was illustrious, having produced Julius Caesar's widow, Calpurnia. But they were also haughty. As staunch republicans, the family never missed an opportunity to criticize the imperial regime. Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso himself had challenged Tiberius before the Senate, no less than 3 times. The first of these challenges occurred just months after Augustus's death, when Tiberius's principate was still in its infancy. A senator named Granius Marcellus had been accused of currying favor with Tiberius by desecrating statues of Augustus, replacing the god's head with that of Tiberius. In response, Tiberius, eager to show that he did not reward sycophants, publicly swore he had no desire for such honors and invited the Senate to follow through with an indictment against Granius Marcellus for blasphemy. Seizing the moment, Piso openly criticized Tiberius for using his tremendous influence to manipulate a cowed Senate who, in his view, would not dare vote freely after hearing the emperor's opinion. And so, Tiberius was forced to allow the acquittal of Granius Marcellus. The following year, Piso challenged Tiberius again, this time by leading the Senate in opposition to his proposal to exile from the city of Rome all who practiced astrology. Piso argued that these Roman citizens deserved protection rather than expulsion, and for a time it seemed Piso had carried the day. But at the last moment, a tribune of the plebs invoked his veto, preventing Piso from blocking Tiberius's decree any further. Later that same year, Piso demonstrated his contempt for Tiberius a 3rd time. When Tiberius announced he would be absent from the Senate for a brief period, Piso insisted that public business should proceed without him. He argued boldly that the Senate's distinction and dignity did not depend on the emperor's presence. No friend to Tiberius, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, would resist these arrangements for the East, demonstrating he was no ally of the imperial family. Germanicus understood. He would have to disabuse Piso of that notion, sooner rather than later. It wasn't long before a commotion drew Germanicus's attention. The wind had picked up, and the sea was choppier. Off in the distance, a ship appeared to be in peril. The crew was scrambling, shouting to one another as they fought against the water that had begun to fill the lower decks. The ship had drifted dangerously close to the rocky coastline, its hull battered and tilting as sailors worked frantically to make repairs. Without hesitation, Germanicus ordered his own ships to pull alongside, as Agrippina came to stand beside him, her eyes scanning the scene. Dropping ropes, members of Germanicus's crew lowered themselves onto the foundering ship. Some assessed the damage, while others ensured the safety of the passengers, escorting them aboard Germanicus's vessel. With an expression of controlled gratitude that masked a flicker of irritation, onto Germanicus's ship stepped Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso himself. He was followed by his wife Plancina, their eldest son Gnaeus and his young wife, and their youngest son Marcus, a boy only slightly older than Germanicus and Agrippina's eldest child. A storm had driven their ship too close to the coastlands, dragging the hull against shallow rocks. As Piso's ship was repaired with the help of Germanicus's men, the group partook of stiff conversation. Germanicus learned that Piso, the new governor of Syria distrusted by Tiberius, was not heading to Antioch, but was instead bound for the kingdom of the Nabateans. There, Piso and his family were to be hosted by King Aretas, the man who controlled vital trade routes in the east. But why? There was something that was not being said. When the repairs were complete, Piso hurried his family aboard, offering only a curt farewell, and sped away, leaving Germanicus and Agrippina to ponder their hasty exit. Something was happening. King Aretas of Nabatea was already known as a favourable ally to Rome, enjoying autonomy as long as he maintained good relations. What more, then, did Piso hope to gain from a kingdom that already supported Rome? Perhaps, as the son of Tiberius, granted imperium maius by the Senate, and as the representative of Rome's imperial family, Germanicus should attend this banquet personally. The banquet was lavish, held at dusk in a pink sandstone palace carved into the top of a mountain, known to the Nabateans as Petra. Dozens of divans surrounded a long central table, resplendent with platters of roast lamb and goat, grilled fish from the Red Sea, and garnished with fresh vegetables, fruits, dates, lentils, and barley, each food spiced with exotic herbs brought along the Nabatean trade routes. The wine, warm and made from date palms, was also spiced and diluted with water. Guests in long linen tunics adorned with intricate patterns mingled throughout the great triclinium, admiring the elaborate architectural details, frescoes and sculptures. Their jewellery of precious metals and stones caught the glow of the roasting fires, reflecting their immense wealth. The melodies of lyres and flutes floated on the air, accompanying the graceful movements of dancers performing traditional Nabatean routines. Reclined on an elaborately decorated divan that was raised slightly higher than those of his guests, King Aretas sat in a richly embroidered silk robe, his long beard oiled and held in place with pomade, a diadem resting on his brow. He laughed and conversed warmly with Piso and Plancina amid the clatter and noise of the festivities. But when Germanicus and Agrippina entered, the clatter ceased. All heads turned. King Aretas leapt from his divan, prompting the guests to rise in unison. With a formal air befitting the son of Rome's emperor and the granddaughter of the god Augustus, the king approached Germanicus and Agrippina, greeting them with exaggerated deference. To showcase the famed hospitality of the Nabateans, Aretas gestured for them to take his own elevated divan, a gesture heavy with significance. As the guests hurriedly rearranged themselves, finding new seats in response to their king's shift, Piso's glare was unmistakable, as he and Plancina were forced to move further down the table, away from their coveted position. After indulging in the sumptuous feast painstakingly prepared for Piso and Plancina, King Aretas gestured for his servants to approach. Dressed in fine linens, the servants entered the great triclinium, carrying a large chest. With a flourish, King Aretas opened it, revealing its golden treasures. He presented majestic crowns of gold to Germanicus and Agrippina, symbols of Nabatea's submission to the glory of Rome. The glint of the gold caught the light, reflecting the high regard in which the Nabateans held their Roman guests. Turning to Piso and Plancina, who had been largely overlooked since the arrival of the imperial family, Aretas offered them gifts of submission as well, lesser crowns of gold, signifying their own status, but clearly subordinate to that of the emperor's lineage. But Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso was deeply offended. Rising abruptly, he snatched the crown from Plancina's hand, and along with the one he had been presented, hurled them to the floor. The golden crowns clattered loudly, shattering the stunned silence that enveloped the room. Piso then berated King Aretas and his Nabatean guests for bestowing such regal honours upon Germanicus and Agrippina, insisting that Germanicus was the son of the Roman princeps, not that of some Parthian king. He then scolded Germanicus and Agrippina for their immorality in accepting such luxurious gifts, a virtue most un-Roman. With that, Piso drew Plancina to her feet, and together they stormed out of the banquet, leaving in their wake a palpable silence.